salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here in Hollywood, California. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here as we, a bunch of friends, talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff, too. Listen, guys, we've got a hell of a lot of stuff to talk about here today, and we're going to go right off the bat here today, talking about a little movie I went to go see the other night called Creed 2. Yes, Creed 2, ladies and gentlemen, has come out and hit theaters. Now, of course, the first Creed kind of came out of nowhere. Creed came out of nowhere, surprised all of us. We didn't really know. I'll be honest with you. When the first Creed was announced and that it was coming out, I thought it was a dumb idea. Now, come on, be honest. A lot of you guys thought it was a dumb idea, too. But Ryan Coogler just did what Ryan Coogler does. He delivered an absolute hit. He delivered a magnificent film. So the other night, we went off to go see Creed 2. I'm going to tell you this right off the bat. Not as good as Creed 1. Not as good as Creed 1. But a really good film nonetheless. Let me start off with this. Let's talk about the performances of both Michael B. Jordan and Sylvester Stallone. Now, you guys will remember that the last time a Creed movie came, Sylvester Stallone actually got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. He didn't win, of course, but he was fantastic in that. And you know what? He's almost as good, every bit as good in this movie as he was in the last one. Now, he wrote the screenplay for this one. He was like the executive producer, wrote the screenplay, all that kind of stuff for it. And you could feel Sylvester Stallone's fingerprints on this movie as well. Michael B. Jordan delivers everything in this movie that he delivered in the first one as well. The intensity, the passion. I think it's fair. He was even more ripped. I don't know how this is even possible. He was even more ripped in this movie than he was in the first Creed. And what's really funny is the way they try to hide just how ripped Sylvester Stallone is. It's like in this movie, they tried to hide how incredibly buff and ripped he is. Because, you know, he was doing all that prep getting ready for the new Rambo movie. So they tried to keep it hidden as much as possible. You could still tell, like, Stallone's a huge dude. But the performances were fantastic. You know what? It wasn't just those two. It was also Dolph Lundgren. Dolph Lundgren, and you know what? I'm never even going to try to say this kid's name. I don't know if you remember the name, Ray, of the kid who plays his son. I just remember reading it a bunch of times. It's like, I'm not even going to try to say that. The kid is not an actor, right? He's not an actor. And so they really limited how much acting they required him to do, which is what a good director will do. Hide your performers' weaknesses, accentuate their strengths. And they did that. First of all, this kid who plays Drago's son, I think it's Victor Drago, just a genetic freak, an absolute genetic freak. He was doing things in some of the training montages in this movie that I thought for sure were CGI. And then I looked it up, I was like, nope, those weren't CGI. That was him. This dude's a genetic freak. But you know what? On the one or two occasions where they needed this kid to make you believe something as an audience member, emotionally believe something as an audience member, kid pulled it off. Kid pulled it off. And you know what? I'm going to say this too. I don't think Dolph Lundgren has ever acted better than he did in this movie, because he needed to portray to us an Ivan Drago who was angry and bitter and broken, and yet have this vision for a vengeance through his son sort of thing. And I'm going to tell you what, there are many films that Dolph Lundgren is in that you just got to hide that he's not truly that much of an actor. But he's been in this business for decades, and he called on all of it. And I'm not going to say it's Oscar worthy or anything like that, but Dolph Lundgren gives us the best performance of his career. And there's this one scene that you see in one of the trailers where Rocky walks into his own restaurant, and sitting there at one of his tables is Ivan Drago. Amazing scene. The way Stallone and Lundgren played off each other in it was fantastic. There's drama. There's really good humor in it as well. They just pepper humor in here and there to kind of balance the film out a little bit, and they do a very, very good job with it. Now, let me say this. One of the criticisms I am hearing from some people about Creed 2 is a fair criticism. And that criticism is this, is that it feels a little formulaic. That to them, Creed feels like it's just following, Creed 2 feels like it's just following a bit of a formula. And I'm going to tell you this, that is a fair thing to say. You're going to see a lot of critics talking about Creed 2 and using words like formula, a little paint by numbers, blah, blah. You kind of expect what happens along the way. And I'm going to say this, it is a fair criticism. It is a very formulaic movie. However, let me say this too. Sometimes formula works. Sometimes formula is the right way to go. And my best analogy for that formula is sometimes a great thing to do is this. If you've got a recipe for like the world's greatest apple pie, right? I don't like apple pie, but whatever. Let's say you got a recipe for the world's greatest apple pie and you follow that recipe. If I take a bite of that thing and it's a great tasting pie, I'm going to say, this is a great tasting pie. Did you follow a recipe? Is it kind of formulaic? Yeah, but that formula worked. And even if you're following a formula, you can butcher it and it could turn out tasting bad if you don't do it right. Does Creed 2 follow a formula? Yes, it does. Fair criticism. But it's a good formula. And they executed the formula. Lots of people try to follow formulas in their films and they blow it. Did they follow a formula? Yes, but they executed. And the end result was a damn good tasting piece of apple pie. The end result of this movie is Creed 2 is really enjoyable. And the theater, now all theaters are different. Every audience you watch a movie with is different. But the audience I saw this movie with broke out into applause a couple of times in this film. Like once during the film, they broke into applause. And then when the film ended, they broke into applause. And I got to say this too. This isn't just a go out there and beat your adversary movie. There's really good emotion. There's drama in it. One of the people I saw the movie with was my wife, and she actually came out in tears. She had tears watching this thing. So again, I'm not saying Creed 2 is as good as the first Creed. That's a hard sell. And you could feel the absence of Ryan Coogler, who did not direct this one. Yes. But they still did a very admirable job. This is a worthy follow-up film. And I'm going to say this too. I think this franchise is done. I think it's done. At least I kind of hope it is, because the note in which they ended this thing was perfect. Just perfect. There are some other directions you could go, and if they do make another one, I'm not going to complain. But I kind of feel like this was a good place to kind of end this thing off and to kind of wrap this thing up. And I think they will do. Listen, I recommend you go to see Creed 2. I enjoyed it. I think you will too. Go out and give it a shot. Just don't have unrealistic expectations about this being the next Shakespeare or blowing away the first Creed, because I don't think it does that. But it's a good movie and a good time and a worthy follow-up. All right. Let's move on to this next thing right off the top here before we talk about yesterday's results of our question of the day. Next thing off the top here is there's a little movie coming out called Aquaman. Now, we have been talking about Aquaman a little bit in the last few days because they have this big advanced screening coming a week before the movie opens, and this special Amazon Prime members on December 15th. Whole bunch of you guys bought tickets. Well, it wasn't just a whole bunch of you guys. Record number of you guys bought tickets for this December 15th. That makes Jason Momoa smile. A record number of you guys went out and bought this ticket. As a matter of fact, Atom Tickets, which is, there's two big major online film ticketing companies. There's Fandango, and of course, then there's Atom Tickets. Atom Tickets, which was the exclusive, I believe, seller for these advanced screening tickets of Aquaman. Atom Tickets is now reporting that the sales for that special December 15th screening of Aquaman has broken their one-day sales, pre-sales records for any movie in history. Atom Tickets is saying that those sales for that Aquaman screening on December 15th has broken their record for one-day, single-day pre-sale tickets, which is not a big surprise, because the moment these tickets went on sale, I jumped online and bought 6 of them. I bought 6. So I could take me, Ann, and then whichever number of our friends wanted to go. So I bought 6 tickets. But then another friend of mine tried buying them an hour later, and he said he tried in the 3 theaters that it was playing anywhere near him, all sold out. Not a surprise at all. Do you think there's a little bit of anticipation for this Aquaman movie? Yeah, there is. Record sales for Adams kind of proves that. Now, look, I'm not saying that Aquaman is going to, make $150 million opening weekend or anything like that. But the other interesting thing is this. Atom Ticket's main competitor, Fandango, while they're not saying Aquaman is breaking any records because, again, only Atom Tickets was able to sell for those December 15th dates, Fandango is reporting that their advanced ticket sales for Aquaman are outpacing the advanced ticket sales for the most recent Mission Impossible film, which opened at about $65 million or somewhere around there. But it is also outpacing the advanced ticket sales for Venom. And Venom opened north of $80 million. Now, I've been saying for a long time that Aquaman isn't going to, break any opening weekend box office records. But guess what? If Aquaman can come in and make $100 million opening weekend, bully for them. Now, again, we've seen some big numbers from Fandango about advanced ticket sales, and then maybe the film doesn't actually go on to have all that big of an opening weekend, but sometimes it does work out. And with Atom Tickets reporting that they sold out of all their crap, first day, boom, sets records for them. Fandango saying this movie's outpacing Venom's pre-sales, which opened at $80 million. A lot of good things are pointing to the fact that people are kind of excited about this Aquaman movie, which is a big testament, I think, to the trailers of this film. The trailers have overcome a lot of the challenges, particularly Justice League and the current status of the DCEU. These trailers have been so good. And you know what? How smart is that idea now from Warner Brothers to have like a full year in between movies? How smart is that decision looking now? Because I'll tell you what, I was one of the people that was like, come on, you put out Justice League and you don't got another movie coming out for another year? Really? There's going to be 3 or 4 Marvel films that come out between Justice League and Aquaman, and you're not going to put one out for another year? But guess what? I think Walter Hamada knew very well that they had an uphill battle, that the current perception of the DCEU wasn't all that good, and maybe we needed a little bit of time. Maybe we need a little bit of a breath. They put out these great trailers to start to change the narrative. It's been a long time it feels like forever since we went to the theaters to watch Justice League. And I'm telling you what, right about now, that decision to put a year in between Justice League and Aquaman is starting to look pretty good. How will this all turn out? Not sure. We'll have to wait and see. Oh, and by the way, I should throw this out there too. With Aquaman going out there and having one big special day of an advanced screening, Bumblebee has followed suit. Except Bumblebee's gone even earlier. Bumblebee has started selling advance tickets for a one-day special screening, not on the 15th, but on December 8th. Like 2 weeks before it opens. So they're playing a little bit of anything you can do, I can do better right now with Aquaman, which is pretty fun. All right, guys, listen. Before we go on to our main topics of the day, you guys know that every day, or at least what we try to do every day, is have ourselves a little question of the day. And we had a little question of the day yesterday. Let's bring that up. So yesterday's question of the day, we simply asked, will Once Upon a Deadpool make $100 million or more at the box office? We talked about this in depth on the show the other day. I thought it wouldn't. I don't think it could, and I listed all the reasons why I don't think it could. It looks like the majority of you guys actually agreed with me, which is kind of rare. 38% of you, though, still believe that, yes, Once Upon a Deadpool can make $100 million or more at the box office, where 62% of you guys said, no, it won't. So thank you to all you guys for participating in the question of the day, and we've got a new question of the day coming up a little bit later in the show. Okay, with that out of the way, let's move on now to our main topics today. And how do we get our main topics? It's simple. You guys pick our main topics by emailing me your topics and questions 24/7 anytime to john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. With that, let's go to the first email today. And the first email today comes to us from Vitgar, who writes, so, yeah, mark me down as one of the only guys who is actually looking forward to Robin Hood. I'm a big fan of Taron Egerton, and I thought it looked really good. Well, that all changed. I was nervous that they held the review embargo so long, and now we know why. Have you seen the reviews? They are brutal. All right, thanks a lot for the email, Vitgar. And yes, now we talked the other day about, is anybody even planning on seeing Robin Hood? Is anybody going to go see this movie? We looked at the tracking numbers. Wreck-It Ralph is opening this weekend. It's tracking for 50. Creed 2 is opening this weekend, tracking for 34 million. And then Robin Hood was tracking for 10. They didn't do a lot of marketing, and they were holding off on the reviews, not allowing the reviews to come out. Well, the reviews finally dropped yesterday, and they're pretty much every bit as brutal as we anticipated they might be. As a matter of fact, right now, Robin Hood is sitting at 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the reviews that are positive are very marginally positive. The reviews that are, those 15% of film critics that like the movie, they're pretty marginal and not very generous in their praise of the film. And let's take a look at what some of the top critics, some of the key critics have been saying about Robin Hood. We start things off with IndieWire. IndieWire writes, "There's no flow to the combat, no sense behind the stunts, and no reason to invest in any of the empty noise around them. Robin Hood just strobes between boredom and absurdity so fast that it starts constantly providing both at once." The Washington Post writes, "Amounts to a chilly and flavorless frappe of historical speculation, revisionist folklore, and every lazy action movie cliche ever written." The Wrap, Yolanda Machado from The Wrap writes, "Reboots and remakes are meant to introduce a new audience to a classic tale with fresh ideas and storylines that make the story relevant to a modern audience. Robin Hood doesn't even try." And then we got from the Boston Globe, who writes, "Egerton makes for an ideal Robin with his Lego-shaped jaw and his ability to deliver lines with great sarcasm while looking good in stylish outwear. The only problem is that there isn't much for Egerton's Robin to say. The zingers don't quite zing." Now let's look and see what a bunch of the other critics, including some of the critics that you and I both know. We got from Fanboy Nation, they write, "As I sat in the theater watching this lifeless would-be franchise starter, there was only one question swirling around in my mind. Who is this movie for?" Nate Adams from The Only Critic writes, "Let's hope this updated Robin Hood isn't successful enough to warrant a sequel promised before the closing credits. This is one storybook that needs to remain closed." Good friend Dan Merle, all of our friend Dan Merle from Screen Junkies writes, "This movie steals so much from Batman Begins that Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer should sue for copyright infringement." 812 Film Reviews writes, "Despite Robin Hood boasting a talented cast, the cheesiness of their script would blunt the sharpness of the performances." Comic Book Reviews writes, "It's simply another action movie, desperately hoping to spawn a franchise despite doing nothing to justify one." And then Salzy at the Movies writes, "Where Robin Hood steals from the rich to give to the poor, this Robin Hood story will only steal your time, better spent watching something else." So not very kind words from the critics of Robin Hood. But then again, look, let me just put this out there. I haven't seen the film yet. I thought the trailers have been ass. The trailers have been absolute ass. I've had no desire to run out to see it. So when I have a choice of, am I going to run out to see Wreck-It Ralph or am I going to run out and see Creed 2? I'm going to see either of those before I go see Robin Hood. Now, I'm planning on seeing it. Who knows? Maybe I'll see it and I enjoy it. But the movie has looked like ass. They've been treating the movie like they thought it was. Like even the studios treated this movie like they thought it was ass by holding the review embargo so late. That's a red flag. Not putting much into the marketing of the film. And so we shouldn't be surprised at all that the people who are seeing the movie pretty much en masse are saying, yeah, this thing pretty much sucks. So, but what do you think? Have you been one of those audience members that had a chance to see an advanced screening of Robin Hood? Maybe you enjoyed it. If so, jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts about Robin Hood. All right, let's move on now to the second email today. And the second email today comes to us from Adam Choate, who writes, "I thought this was a joke, but I guess the official title has been revealed as Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I know titles don't matter, and most people will just refer to this as Birds of Prey anyways, but why?" All right, thanks a lot for the email, Adam. For those of you who don't know what Adam is talking about, we all know that there is Warner Brothers and DC is developing a Birds of Prey film that's going to feature Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. It's going to feature Huntress. And was the other one Black Canary? Is that who was going to feature as well? I think the third one was Black Canary. That's going to be featured as well. So we know this is coming. Margot Robbie got on social media the other day, and she put up this picture. Now, this is a copy of the picture. This is a picture of the copy of the script. And it's got Birds of Prey in type, and then it's got handwritten, and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. So because it's handwritten in, a bunch of people took online and say, no, that's not really the title, because the title is just Birds of Prey. You can see it right there. That's just Margot Robbie writing something in to be funny. However, the Hollywood Reporter then came out to confirm that no, the Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn, is indeed the title of the film. And as a matter of fact, it might actually just be called the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. I don't know. This is for sure a mouthful. It's for sure a mouthful. Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that one movie. What was it? The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. It's a little wordy, a little bit wordy. The question comes, why? Why name your movie this? Honestly, look, I'll tell you straight up. It's a stupid title. It's a stupid title. I do get a kick out of the fact that she used the word fantabulous. I thought, when I was a kid, I made that word up. Clearly, I did not. But I used to say fantabulous all the time. I thought I made it up. Clearly, I didn't. I'm sure there's a lot of things in life we think we created and we really didn't. Anyway, it's a bad title. It's a bad title. Way too wordy, stupid wording. It's not easily write-outable. And you're right, Adam. Everybody is just going, no one's going to call this movie Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. No one's going to call that. Everybody's just going to call it Birds of Prey. Just like Disney can say, no, the name of this movie is Ralph Breaks the Internet. It doesn't matter. Everybody's going to call it Wreck-It Ralph 2. That's what we're going to call it. No one's going to call it this. So it's a bad title. But the thing is, Adam, it doesn't matter. Who cares? It doesn't matter what the title of this movie is. The title of this movie is in no way, shape, or form going to add or detract from the quality of the film. The movie's either going to be good or bad, or somewhere most likely in between. And the title is going to do nothing to nudge that towards being a little bit better of a movie or a little bit worse. The only thing the title is a marketing tool, and it's not a very good one. They kind of blew it. It's dumb. I love it. I understand that words like that are probably consistent with the character of Harley Quinn and the way she's being portrayed by Margot Robbie. You can totally say that, hey, yeah, this is what she would say. This is how she would say it. Okay, I get it. It's still a dumb title. It still doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it isn't going to do anything to improve your movie, and I guarantee you this, it's not going to sell one single more ticket. But at the bottom line is this, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You could name this movie DC Presents Ass Pimple. Ass Pimple the movie. It's not going to do anything to the movie. The movie will still be as good or mediocre or bad as if it were called Birds of Prey. So it doesn't really matter. So I'm not going to get worked up about it. However, I will basically agree with you that, yup, dumb title. All right, let's move on now to the third email today. And the third email today comes to us from Martin Bridgman, who writes, "Hey, John, I love the show and watch every day when I get home from classes." Thank you so much, Martin. It's good to have you here. Did you see the new trailer for Lego 2? I love the first one, and this looks like it won't disappoint. Just wondering what you thought of the new trailer. All right, so yes, the new trailer for the Lego Movie 2, the second part is what it's called, dropped, and I adore it. I absolutely adore it. I thought it looked cute, and it looked charming, and everything that the first movie was. Now listen, the first Lego movie, much like Creed, was a movie that I and a lot of people looked at, and it made about as much sense as when they announced a Monopoly movie. And everybody's, what the hell are you making a movie about Monopoly? That was that was the reaction from most people when they announced that they're doing a Lego movie. Wait a minute, you're making a movie about square, plastic, snappable building blocks? And you're making a movie about this. It was stupid. And we all thought it was stupid. And we all said it was stupid. But then the movie came out and was awesome. Because everything is awesome. It was fantastic. It was charming and hilarious. And I mean, it had endearing moments, and you just fell in love with Emmett, and you all wanted to be Emmett, and everybody wanted to be Wild Style and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, we move on to part 2 now. So one of the things that I really dug right off the bat with this thing is that they start this trailer by taking us right to Wild Style and Emmett. and we pick up with these guys, and they're living in this desolate Mad Max kind of Thunderdome wasteland. And Emmett is still Emmett. He's still smiling and cheery, and that's all great and fantastic. And then, as we saw in the first trailer, something happens. Wildstyle gets kidnapped, blah, blah, and they go to the Sistar system and all this kind of nonsense. We saw all that. One of the most important major new elements, though, that they introduced us to in this trailer was the greatest name in the history of Lego movies, Rex Dangervest. Rex Dangervest, who it took me a minute to figure out, but is also being voiced by Chris Pratt. And it took me a second. Once I clued in what they're doing, I got to admit, I had to pause the trailer because I was laughing so hard. When Rick Dangervest, voiced by Chris Pratt, announces he is a galaxy-saving, a little bit of mentioning, a little bit of a reference to his roles in Guardians of the Galaxy. Dinosaur training, of course, that's a reference to him in Jurassic World. Although one of the things he said, he's an archaeologist. What movie was Chris Pratt an archaeologist in any movie? I can't think of one off the top of my head. Oh, I mean, yeah, but fact checker Jonathan's saying like maybe it was the fact that so many people were saying that Chris Pratt should be the next Indiana Jones, right? So maybe it was a joke on that. But anyway, when I picked up on that, it was hilarious because he had all the Raptors he was training and everything. I thought it was hilarious. Look, like we say all the time, lots of great movies have terrible trailers. Lots of great trailers have terrible movies. Maybe Lego 2 is going to suffer from, the sophomore jinx. Maybe it's going to trip and fall and do whatever. Possible. But right now, I think the trailer looks pretty damn endearing. It looks like it's going to be on par with the first one. Let's find out if it is. We'll find out pretty soon. All right, let's move on now to the fourth email today. And the fourth email today comes to us from Gavin Lothar, who writes, if the Joker movie is successful, do you think that it would be a good idea for Marvel to make Elseworld movies of their own? They could tell more mature stories about their darker characters like Wolverine, Blade, Punisher, etc. All right. Thanks a lot for the email, Gavin. And yeah, so many of you guys know, it looks like DC, Warner Brothers and DC is going to be experimenting with these Elseworld stories. Stories leveraging some of their classic characters, but that sit outside of their cinematic universe and are not tied or part of their ongoing shared cinematic universe that they do with all their other films, like Aquaman, Justice League, Batman vs. Superman, Wonder Woman, Shazam, whatever. The Flash, if that ever happens. So they're doing this Joker movie that sits outside of that. It's not connected to that universe whatsoever. It's a totally separate thing. I have always liked the idea of the Elseworlds stories, and I was very thrilled when they announced they were doing this Joker movie because I believe it gives filmmakers freedom to tell whatever kind of story they want without worrying about how it affects the cinematic universe. It ties your hands. When you got to worry about what's going on and what you do in your movie and how it affects the cinematic universe, it totally ties your hands. So I have been thrilled with the notion that they're doing this Joker movie. And I hope it succeeds because it could open the door for a lot of other standalone Elseworlds. And one of my main points is this. Some of the best comic book stories of all time have been Elseworld stories, stories that sit outside of time. And Marvel is no exception. Now, when we think of Elseworld stories, we mostly think about DC stuff, understandably so. But listen, Marvel's done some great stuff too. Old Man Logan, Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe again, which, by the way, if you have not read either or Old Man Logan or Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, I highly recommend that you check them out because they are imaginative. They're like just great storytelling, great narrative. They play with a lot of different motifs. I really recommend you check these things out. Anyway, for the most part, these things sit outside of the reality of the ongoing comic lines, right? Which lets creators tell some really cool imaginative stories when they don't have to worry about how it ties into the rest of the world. Look, whether or not the success or failure of a Joker movie for Warner Brothers will or will not influence Kevin Feige and the honchos over at the MCU to actually try exploring their own Elseworld movies, whether the Joker movie has any influence over them or not, I absolutely believe that Marvel should, if nothing else, at least contemplate the idea of doing some standalone stories, some Elseworld outside of the MCU standalone stories. It'll just give you the freedom to explore some stuff. It opens up some other comic book stories that maybe you can't do right now. There's probably a lot of Marvel comics and stories that you just can't do in this MCU because of the way the MCU set up. But if you do what DC is trying out with their Joker movie, you try doing your own standalone Elseworld kind of story, now all of a sudden a whole new world of archived Marvel comic book history stories, it opens up a whole new world of them that you couldn't use right now because they don't fit the MCU as it currently exists. But now you can, because you don't have to worry about how they tie into the current MCU. And that would be an absolute beautiful thing. An absolutely beautiful thing. And why not start with Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe? Why not? Disney, sometime later in 2019, Disney's going to get Deadpool back. Why not do it with starting off with the Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe? I think that would be amazing. And kick things off. Look, I'm not saying get rid of the MCU. I'm not saying get rid of the shared universes. I'm simply proposing, as I always have, that it's not an either or. It's not an either you do standalone stories or you do shared cinematic universe. It can be both and. Doesn't have to be either or. It can be both and. And I would love to see them start exploring some both and stuff and give us some different kinds of stories like the comics have given us over the years. But that's just my thought. What do you guys think about that? Jump down to the comment section below and leave me your thoughts. All right, with that out of the way, let's move on to the fifth and final email today. And the fifth and final email today comes to us from Jack. And Jack writes, the other day on your open mic show, when asked about Bill Maher's recent comments, you asked why everyone cared so much. What is the difference between Ethan Hawke's comments about comic book movies and Bill Maher's comments? Bill Maher did not just state that he didn't like or appreciate Stan Lee, but rather belittled the importance of comic books and insulted comic book movie viewers / the movies themselves. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Jack. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even want to address this. I did not even want to address this, but I've gotten so many emails that I just selected Jack's to use. But there were a lot of you guys writing me about Bill Maher. And for those of you who might have seen the open mic I did over the weekend, somebody asked an open mic about Bill Maher. My simple response to the Bill Maher thing was, who cares? Who cares? And I kind of brushed it off and I moved on. But I've had a lot of you guys write to me since, and for some reason, I have no idea why you want to hear what I think about Bill Maher's comments. For those of you who don't know, and I'm sure most of you do by now, because everybody's been talking about them, Bill Maher did a blog post on his blog. He didn't get on national radio, didn't get on his television, he just put out a blog post on his blog. That the basic gist, I'm not going to read it off verbatim, the basic gist is this, is like, he doesn't understand why people are making such a big deal about Stan Lee, the guy made comic books, you know? And he kind of shares a point of view that a lot of people have, which is, look, I thought comic books were great until I became an adult. And I always kind of thought that that's what it was. Like, you read comic books as kids, and then when you're adults, you don't read comic books anymore. That's his worldview. Obviously, I disagree with that worldview. That is a worldview that used to be the dominant worldview, and it is no longer the dominant worldview. People are starting to catch on and understand the depth and the mythologies and all that kind of stuff that go into the storytelling of comic book movies, and it's a changing thing. But he's not alone in that worldview, and it's his worldview. I want to be clear here. When I first read that Bill Maher had said something about Stan Lee, and I saw how visceral people were reacting to it, I expected to go to Bill Maher's blog and read him saying Stan Lee was a dick. Stan Lee was a loser. Like I expected, like he was saying something really, really horrible about Stan Lee in his blog post because of the like I say, the vitriol I started seeing from people and how angry they were about Bill Maher's comments, right? But at the end of the day, he simply said what has been a common mindset about comics and comic books going back decades, that he thinks comic books are for kids. And he never said anything mean about Stan Lee, but he said, you know, this is a guy who passed away. Like, people are celebrating the life of this guy more than the guy who, you know, cured polio. right? And for somebody without worldview, that can be confusing. Here's my thoughts and reactions to what Bill Maher said and all that kind of stuff. Who cares what Bill Maher said about Stan Lee? Who cares? Somebody is going to have to explain to me why Bill Maher is suddenly an important figure in the world of movies and pop culture and comic books. Last time I checked, Bill Maher is not a personality in movies or pop culture or comic books. Now, look, Jack, you asked me in the email, and understandably so. You know, I took offense as a film fan to Ethan Hawke's comments about the comic book movies. See, that was different to me. Then the reason that was different to me is Ethan Hawke is in the movie industry. And for him to poo-poo on, a big trend that people are loving and beloved about movie industry and trash talk on it and all that kind of stuff, it just made him look coming across as sour grapes and jealous and all that kind of blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I do take an issue with somebody in that industry starts dogging on another element of that same industry. I believe it's a different thing. And I can understand, like when Jodie Foster said some negative things about comic book movies, I could understand and I would join in the voices of film fans saying, hey, we are in-house here. And you're dogging on another part of the house just because it's not that part of the house that you live in, I understand that. I can understand why people would want to sit up and take notice of an Ethan Hawke or of a Jodie Foster or anybody else who is a prime film industry person saying something like this. Why the fuck do any of us give a shit about what Bill Maher says? I mean, first of all, why would anybody give a shit about what Bill Maher says about anything? I mean, look, I have never cared for Bill Maher. I don't like Bill Maher, but whatever, I don't care. He's more than anything else, he's a political commentator. A comedian who is a political commentator. That's really what he's more about politics than anything else. That's a different world. To be quite frank with you, I don't give a crap about anything he says about anything. I find him to be a ridiculous human being that often makes more statements based on emotion than on information. So that's just my opinion of Bill Maher, but whatever, who cares? But for somebody like Bill Maher to say something that, quite frankly, a lot of people think, and again, he was not attacking anybody. He simply gave his misinformed, point of view and observation about something. He wasn't mean to anybody. But even if he was mean, again, I gotta ask, why does anybody care? He's not a comic book person. It would be different if a comic book person started trashing on something like an icon in their own industry. That would be different. He's not a comic book person. He's not a movie person. He's not somebody anybody would ever talk about in any movie circles ever. But, he said something about Stan Lee that isn't in line with something that we believe and think, therefore, let's get all mad about it. And I got to ask why. Because I got to ask you this. What is the difference between Bill Maher saying, I think comic books are for kids and I don't think it's all that important, and Barry the plumber from Toledo? Seriously, what is the difference between Bill Maher saying something like that and Barry the plumber from Toledo saying, I think them comic books are for kids? I don't think adults should read them. I don't think they're all that important. Why aren't you getting upset about Barry the plumber from Toledo saying it? And honestly, I sadly think, look, I've said this before, I will say it again. Me, you, everybody, we love being outraged. And we love having something to be outraged about. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of it. We are a species that loves to feel outrage over about something, and we will desperately look for something to feel outraged over. And I'll tell you, I'll just give you my 2 cents worth here. Take it or leave it. I could be totally wrong about this. I'll give you my 2 cents worth. I think Bill Maher became as ill-informed and as ridiculous and as no one should ever listen to him about anything anyway. But I think Bill Maher here has become a little bit of a scapegoat. I think he became a great target for us to get angry at, to get upset at, to express outrage over. And a part of that, I think is a little bit of a coping mechanism, as a lot of us as fans on a fan level and as a fan community are mourning the loss of Stan Lee. As a fan community, we mourn the loss of Stan Lee. And I think, honestly, we were just looking for somebody to be mad at. I honestly think, for the most part, a lot of us were just looking for somebody to become the target so we could vent, so we could unleash a lot of that pent-up anger, frustration, whatever about that. And you know what? I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm guilty of this too, except I didn't make Bill Maher my target. I made Armie Hammer my target. Armie Hammer, he got out because I think we were all kind of, the fandom part of us, very few of us actually knew Stan Lee personally, but the fandom part of us, the fandom in of us still felt very raw and sore and hurt at the passing of Stan Lee. And, Armie Hammer came out, put out that tweet saying, oh, all these celebrities putting out pictures with them and Stan Lee. Yeah, that's just you trying to blah, blah. Like, it was really an insensitive, stupid thing for him to tweet. And I took my frustration and my disappointment on the passing of Stan Lee, and I decided to make Armie Hammer the target of it. I did. And I replied to his tweet that I think was like the top responded tweet on his thing. And it took on a life of its own. And all of a sudden it became a big deal. But I said, hey, Armie, thanks a lot, like moron, for being the judge about how other people should express their sorrow over the passing of somebody else. Thanks for appointing yourself judge, something like that. Right? I think the reality of it, I was just looking for somebody to vent on as a fan, And Armie Hammer made himself an attractive target. And other people vented out on him. And then Bill Maher comes out, makes these comments. Again, who the hell cares? There is absolutely no reason why we should care 1 ounce more about what Bill Maher said about Stan Lee and feels and thinks about the importance or lack thereof of comic books in our pop culture than the opinion of Barry the plumber in Toledo. He has nothing to do with this industry. We never talk about Bill Maher. Why do we suddenly care? And again, it's not like he came out and said, Stan Lee touched kids or anything ridiculous like that. He expressed a stupid opinion that is outdated and old, but hardly worth us getting upset about and hardly worth us talking about it. And I quite frankly feel dumber the fact that I just spent 5 minutes talking about it myself. But anyway, that's just my thought and my opinion on that. I'm sure you guys have some very passionate opinions about it too. Jump down to the comments section, whether you agree or disagree with me. Doesn't matter. It's all about the conversation. Jump down to the comments section below and let me know what you guys think. Okay, guys, with all that out of the way, let's jump over and take some of your live questions. A bunch of you guys have been firing in a bunch of live questions. Let's go over to the chat board now and see what some of you guys have been talking about. And we're going to start things off with Donaldo Martinez, who writes, after the success of Lord of the Rings, do you think Sean Connery regretted turning down the role of Gandalf? Probably, yes. Yeah, and I actually believe I read once he talked about that as being a bit of a mistake. Do you know, and particularly, I believe he turned it down so he could do the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Wah, wah. And the company, the visual effects company and the CGI company I was working for, we worked on that film. It was awful. Awful. Great idea for a movie. Based on the graphic novels. Great notion. Great idea for a movie. But yeah, that was terrible. And yes, I do believe that Sean Connery has always regretted that decision. Stefan Gonzalez writes, finished Narcos Mexico, and now I'm definitely looking forward to the Cassian show. Diego Luna is fantastic, and Michael Pena too. Yeah, very, very good. Look, I got through Narcos Mexico. I didn't think it was nearly as good as Narcos. I didn't think it was nearly as good as Narcos, but I did enjoy it quite a bit. It was quite good. And Diego Luna was dynamite in it. Absolute dynamite. And you're right, Michael Pena. It's funny because I had an episode on, and I think Ray came down, and we were watching for a bit. And I said, it's still funny. It's weird looking at Michael Pena not in a comedic role. Because and it's unfair, but I so associate him with comedic roles. But he was great in that dramatic role. I thought he was wonderful in it. All right. Santez Henderson writes, just saw Creed, one of my favorite films of the year. I'm going to assume you mean Creed 2. I had a great time with it. Again, I don't think it was quite as good. Nice. I don't think it's quite as, well done, Ray. I don't think it was quite as good as the first Creed, but yeah, definitely Definitely a winner. I had a very good time with it. Yes, formulaic, but sometimes sometimes a recipe makes a delicious dish. And to me, that's what Creed 2 was. A formula that followed a recipe, but it turned out great. Let's see. I'm Upset writes, thoughts on the film Wild Hogs? Wow. My thought, you know what's funny? Somebody brought up Wild Hogs like about 3 weeks ago. I mean, it's awful. But you know what? Some people hold it up as like, but it did not bad at the box office. Some people hold it up as like one of the worst films ever made. I don't think it was that bad. I thought it was bad, but I didn't think it was all that bad. Kara Black writes, the Birds of Prey title is unnecessary. Why can't they just keep it simple? Also, Harley is misplaced here. She isn't a bird of prey or a hero. Get out of here with this nonsense, DC. Well, the reality though, Kara, first of all, I agree. The title is unnecessary. It's unnecessary. And let's be frank, nobody is going to call it what they're calling it, right? We all know this. They're not going to call it what they're calling it. We're all going to call it Birds of Prey. Not the Fantabulous, I can't even remember. I've already forgotten. Fantabulous, Harley Quinn, something. Anyway, it's already gone. Now, as far as Harley is misplaced here, she isn't a bird of prey or a hero. Well, guess what? Yes, she is. In the movies, she is. And that's one of the things that I keep trying to like hammer into us as film fans and comic book fans who are also film fans is that, remember, the comic books and the movies are two different things. Remember, Harley Quinn wasn't even created in the comic books. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the world's foremost expert on Harley Quinn history, but Harley Quinn was created in the animated series, was she not? I don't even think she was created in the comic book, so who cares? But the important thing is we got to remember the distinction that the comic books and the movies are two different things. In the movie world, she's an anti-hero. She was in Suicide Squad. She is here, and she is in the Birds of Prey here. So we're just going to have to, because I know I have to do this sometimes. Sometimes we just got to suck it up and just go, this isn't the comic book. This is the movie. And that's what she is in the movies. And it's separate and different from the thing. Because look, I say this all the time. Civil War was nothing like the comic book Civil War. Nothing like it. X-Men Days of Future Past was hardly recognizable from the comic book version of X-Men Days of Future Past. Hardly recognizable. And yet they're a couple of the greatest comic book movies ever made. So it's hard for us, Cara. It's hard for us film fans to do, but sometimes we just got to take a deep breath and I know I got to do this all the time. Suck it up and just go, this isn't the comic books, this is the movies, and they're doing something different in the movies, and I just got to accept that. Static Space Sean writes, I see what is in your mind, and it is stupid. Oh, I thought I knew what it was until I got to the end there. I see what is in your mind, and it is stupid. I don't know what that's from. I'm stumped on that one. If you guys know what it is, jump into the comment section and let know what it is. Static Sean, Space Sean writes, is this canon? It sounds like something from Deadpool. It sounds like something from a Deadpool movie, but I can't place it, so I don't know that for sure. Now, right now, there's thousands of you guys yelling at your computer monitors. Campea, it's obviously this, and I'm just not free. I'm freezing on. I can't pull it out. I'm Upset writes, I'm shocked movie 43 isn't on your unholy trinity list. Well, here's the thing about movie 43. I have, for those of you who don't know what I'm Obsessed talking about, I have this unholy trinity list. They're the 3 worst major Hollywood motion pictures put out in wide release in history. And they are, in no particular order, Catwoman, Highlander 2, and Battlefield Earth. That is the unholy trinity, the worst of the worst of wide release Hollywood films ever made. Movie 43 is absolutely awful on every level. The reason I don't put it into the same category is because it's a very different kind of movie. It's almost not even a movie. It's a collection of sketches. It's really more like an elongated Saturday Night Live, like an elongated, really bad episode of Saturday Night Live. Because this is a series of 10 or 12 or 14, I can't remember, like short sketches. So I don't really count it. maybe you can make an argument that I should count it, but I don't count it, so that's why it's not even in consideration for that. But even then, I don't know if it's as bad as those other three, but it's a good one. It's worthy of conversation, though. Ben Hayusa writes, that's a long-ass title. Why not just call it Birds of Prey? Also, who cares about Bill? What's his name? Never cared for her. Never cared for her. I like that. Hey, look, I agree with you. Why not just call it Birds of Prey? I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We're going to call it Birds of Prey anyway. It's not going to affect, how good or bad the movie is. But honestly, I'm with you. I don't understand why you don't just call Birds of Prey and leave it at that. It's a much easier title to market. But hey, they've got their reasons. I'm sure we'll find out what those reasons are soon enough. Gotta love them movies writes, hey, John, pre-Thanksgiving Marcy's Parade greetings from New York. Well, thank you so much, man, and happy Thanksgiving coming up to everybody out there, by the way. Just watched Mandy with Nicolas Cage last night. Whoa, have you seen it? Not a movie I can watch often, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's one of those movies, never got a wide release, but I have had so many people tell me I should check out Mandy, and I never have. I've never watched it, but I've had so many people tell me I should check it out. And you are just the latest to that number. And by the way, Nicolas Cage, who has spent the better part of a decade just appearing in crap, he's starting to appear in some of the smaller stuff that some people are actually really liking. And Mandy is one of the more recent examples of that. And the other one he was just in was Mom and Dad. I think that's what it was called, Mom and Dad, the one where there's like a zombie outbreak, but it's instead of turning people into like undead, they make parents. There's this plague that makes all parents want to kill their children. And it's like, so it's an apocalyptic thing on that level. And Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair, I believe it's Selma Blair who's in it with them, play this couple and they've got these two teenage kids and they're out trying to kill their kids. I thought that one was great. But I'm hearing all these great things about Mandy. So no, I have not watched it yet, but you are just the latest in the long list, gotcha, of people telling me I need to add it to the list, and I definitely will. Adam Douglas writes, rank your mothership musicians: Alanis Morissette, Bryan Adams, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, Celine Dion, Bare Naked Ladies, and Rush. I don't do orders and rushes and top fives and top tens and these things, Adam Douglas. By the way, I'm not quite sure what you mean by your mothership musicians. What does that mean? Does that mean favorite, or does that mean people I would want a mothership to come and take away? I can't think of anybody on this list. I'll admit I'm not a big Neil Young fan. I understand his role in classic, and he's a good Canadian kid. I believe Neil Young is Canadian. Bare Naked Ladies are awesome. Rush is obviously awesome. Celine Dion is iconic. Bryan Adams, Alanis Morissette. I love them all. I like Joni, but I like them all. But I'm not even really curious. But I'm not going to sit here and rank them. I'm not going to rank them right now. But always makes me happy when people bring up the Bare Naked Ladies. Hold me now and watch a hoodwink. I make you stop think. You think you're looking at Aquaman as someone fish to the dish, although like the stylish fish, I like the sushi because it never touch a frying pan. Anyway. Yeah, I do know all the lyrics to that song, by the way. The One writes, you think the Johnny Depp controversy hurt Fantastic Beasts 2 box office? Honestly, no, not that much. I really don't. The fact of the matter is, there wasn't all that much buzz when the first Fantastic Beasts came out. And the last Fantastic Beasts, while I enjoyed it, and I think the majority of people enjoyed it, there weren't a lot of people out there that went crazy over the Fantastic Beasts movie. I'm not going to say there was zero impact as a result of the Johnny Depp stuff. I'm not going to say it was zero. But quite frankly, Johnny Depp was the best part of that movie. Johnny Depp was the best part of this new Fantastic Beasts movie, in my opinion. He was fabulous. Was there an impact? I'm sure there was an impact, but I don't think it was anything significant, to be honest with you. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Reese Hughes writes, biggest star, Stallone or Schwarzenegger? Oh, man, that's an age-old question that will never be truly answered until the end of time. I mean, who's the bigger star right now? It's Stallone, obviously. With his Creed franchise and Academy Award nomination the other year and all that kind of stuff. Who's the bigger star right now? Stallone. When it's all said and done, overall, who is the bigger star? Stallone, Schwarzenegger? That is a question for the philosophers to answer, because I don't think and you're never going to get consensus on this. You're never going to get consensus on that one. So I'm going to take a push on that. I'm going to take a push. ZOMG Ruler writes, would you like Gadot better as Wonder Woman with blue eyes? Who cares? I don't care whether she's got blue eyes, green eyes, purple eyes, plaid eyes. I really don't care I don't care unless a character's name is Captain Blue Eyes if that was a character's name, Captain Blue Eyes, then it would be important to me that the character in the film have blue eyes. At that point, it would make sense. Otherwise, I've never cared. Who's this Hugh Jackman guy? Wolverine is not 6'1". Well, who cares? Who's that guy? That guy's supposed to have shoulder-length hair, not 1 inch longer than shoulder-length. Who cares? That character's eyes are this color. Who cares? Again, unless you got, the avenging perky butt. I don't care if an actor has a perky butt playing the avenging. I just don't care. Unless it's important and relevant to the story, I really don't care. So no, that wouldn't change a thing, nor does it hurt a thing. Ben Hayusa writes, I also watched that Andre the Giant documentary. Brilliant, by the way. I watched that Andre the Giant documentary that you once suggested on the show before. As a longtime wrestling fan, it was fascinating to watch. It was fascinating to watch. It was heartbreaking, too. There's this part in it where Reiner and Billy Crystal are talking about like how much physical pain Andre was in during the whole shooting of Princess Bride. It was really heartbreaking. But it was a remarkable life. It was, pardon the pun, but it was a larger than life that he led, and it was ended far too short. If you haven't seen this, I believe it's on HBO, right, Ray? The Andre the Giant documentary is on HBO. Check it out. It's really, whether you're a wrestling fan or not, it was absolutely fascinating. All right, here. Let's see. Ben Rayner writes, what if Sony gets cocky and is like, we don't need Marvel anymore to make Spider-Man movies, and takes them back? Is that possible? No. It's the complete opposite that's happened. They've realized we don't need Spider-Man in order to make a big, successful comic book universe. That's what's happened. A lot of people, I still remember, I'm not going to go into this too much, but a lot of people are saying, oh, we got to boycott Venom because we got to have Venom fail so that Spider-Man stays with Marvel. And I'm like, idiots. That's the opposite of what's going to happen. Sony right now is trying out having Spider-Man in the MCU and trying to do their own cinematic universe at the same time without Spider-Man. If Venom had flopped, and it's a mega hit, but if Venom had flopped, Sony would have been left in a position, oh, I guess we can't make a successful comic book universe without Spider-Man. Yoink, and they would have taken Spider-Man back. And I've been telling everybody, look, you don't have to like Venom, but you better hope it does well if you want Spider-Man to stay in the MCU. And I believe now with the mega hit, with Venom turning out to be a mega hit, it has greatly increased the chances that Marvel or that Sony will leave Spider-Man over in the MCU for the foreseeable future. It would have been completely the opposite had it gone the other way. Completely, absolutely. Gotta love them movies writes, as an improv teacher in New York, I often hear that casting directors are looking for actors with strong improv skills. But I wonder, how much improvisation is ever allowed on set from any given production? It all depends on the director. Some directors like to run a much tighter ship. Some directors like to let the actors go a little bit just to see what they come up with. Look, I know several directors, and I know there have been movies that have been directed that, hey, they let the directors wander, but it ended up being exactly to script. I know some, kind of more rein it in kind of directors that end up with a number of their scenes being completely improv. When a scene's flowing from the good directors I've seen, and I am not a good director, but from the good directors I've watched, they'll do a scene, they'll get their take, and then they'll want to try some things out. And they'll go, okay, try doing this where you're not kind of ambivalent about it, but you're actually angry about it. Let's try the scene. Let's take a minute, think about that for a second. Try this where you're playing it a little bit angrier. And, say what comes to mind. And they'll try some things out on stage. And when you've got actors who are really good improv skills, you're afforded the ability to explore that kind of stuff because you're not going to take up too much time. Time is money on a film set. You can't waste time on a film set. So if you've got performers who've got really strong improv skills, that buys the director the ability to say, hey, you know what? It's not going to take us long to try it. So try playing it like this. Try doing this. What happens if this happens? Blah, blah, blah. And they let some things play out. And quite often in movies, those little ad hoc scenes that are improv, many of those scenes will make it into a film. Some directors like going totally improv on things, right? So it's always a great skill to have. It is always a great skill to have. which is one of the reasons why I would never be a good actor because I have no improv skills whatsoever. All right. Bennett Tompkins writes, there are two things I hate in this world: people who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch. I love that line. That is from, I believe, the third Austin Powers movie, Goldmember. One of the funniest. I often say when Dark Helmet in Spaceballs says to Lone Star, now Lone Star, you'll see that evil will always triumph because good is dumb, is one of my top all-time funniest moments from a movie. That movie, the great Michael Caine saying that line in that Austin Powers movie, is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. One of the funniest things I've ever heard. Anyway, let's move on here. Rodrigo Ortiz, I just got time for a couple more questions, guys, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. Rodrigo Ortiz writes, you and Ann get set up for a blind double date. You show up to the restaurant, and there's Tom Hanks and Jennifer Garner together waiting for you guys. Well, yeah. See, here's the thing. Tom Hanks is my wife Ann's favorite human being on earth, right? Not me, Tom Hanks. Ann loves me, but Tom Hanks is Ann's favorite human being on the earth. Almost in a paternal way, right? With me, with Jennifer Garner, I just straight up celebrity crush on Jennifer Garner. Totally different thing. I don't look at Jennifer Garner as a mother figure. I look at Jennifer Garner as one of the most spectacular actresses and beautiful women on the face of the planet. So that's two different things there. So yeah, I'll just leave that at that. Now, if we showed up for a double date and it was Jennifer Garner and Justin Timberlake, that might become a different issue altogether. All right, take just a couple more here. Rodrigo Ortiz. Oh, that was Rodrigo. Sebastian writes, I plan to binge watch this show and others this week. Well, thank you so much, man. Binge watching the John Campea Show is great because it gets you caught up on everything that went on in the movie world that week. Boom, in just a little bit. So thank you for doing that, Sebastian. Amin writes, Sing Street or A Star Is Born? I love Sing Street, but you know what? I'll take A Star Is Born. I think Star Is Born is that good. Look, Star Is Born is not my best picture of the year. No, it's not. And Sing Street is really, really good. But A Star Is Born is a really special film. As a first-time director, Bradley Cooper made a couple of mistakes, but he did so many things so well in it that it's a movie you walk out talking about. And, you know, to a degree, you can say the same thing about Sing Street, but for me, I'm going to take A Star Is Born. KW writes, have you seen Can You Ever Forgive Me? I'm thinking it can be a possible contender at the Oscars. You know what? I have not seen that. Straight up, I can just tell you, I haven't seen that one, no. Cobra writes, how will the Prime early screenings be counted in terms of opening box office of Aquaman? I don't think they will. I don't think they will be counted towards the opening. As far as, well, then it'll figure into its overall box office. It'll definitely count towards its overall box office. But it won't count. I do not believe it'll count. Actually, I'm positive it won't count towards its opening weekend totals. Will not count towards its opening weekend totals. Which is fine, because the number the studio really cares about is the final number. The overall number. That's what the studios really care about, is that big final overall number. That's the one they care about most. The opening weekend box office, is not all that important in the grand scheme of things. The opening weekend box office is just great and important because it gives you a projection about how this movie can do, and it tells you how excited people were to see it. But ultimately, it's the overall box office that counts. I mean, hey, look, the number one all-time box office film in history is Avatar. If I'm not mistaken, and fact checker Jonathan or Ray, you might want to check this out or look this up, but I believe that Avatar's opening weekend box office was $77 million. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Venom had a bigger opening weekend at the box office than Avatar did. Avatar, the $2.7 or $2.8 billion biggest box office film of all time movie, and Venom, I believe, had a bigger opening week than. Have either of you guys had a chance to look that up? It is $77 million. Ray confirmed. Made $77 million. Now, would they like a big opening weekend? Yes. Is a big opening weekend important? Yes. But it pales in comparison to the importance of the overall number, and that's what they're going for there. Let's see. Sebastian writes, the manager of AMC Poway 10 is doing his job. I only hope someone at AMC and viewing a large audience like yours gives Juju and Michael a solid thumbs up. I'll be honest with you, Sebastian, I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know who Juju or Michael are, but hey, that's okay. All right. Listen, guys, we're going to wrap things up now. That's all the time we have for today. But before we sign off here today, guys, it is time for us to leave you with the question of the day. And the question of the day we have for you guys today goes back to that one we talked about, Bill Maher. And the question is this: should we care what Bill Maher said about Stan Lee? Should it bother us? I'm sure there's many of you are going to say yes. I think some of you are going to be like me and say no. Here's what you do. You're going to run over to my Twitter. My Twitter is simply at twitter.com/John Campea. You can see it right there. That's my Twitter handle right down there. It's simply at John Campea. And the question is simple. Should we even care about what Bill Maher said about Stan Lee? Simple answer, yes or no. We'll revisit those answers that you guys give on tomorrow's show. Now, you might be asking, but John, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Yes, but there's still going to be a John Campea show tomorrow. It won't be here in the studio. I'll be doing it from home because we're doing Thanksgiving at home tomorrow, so I'm going to do the show from there. But we are going to have an episode for those of you who are taking the day off and going to be hanging around and want to talk a little bit of movies. We're going to do that tomorrow. All right, for those of the rest of you who sent in super chat questions that we didn't have time to get around to, don't worry. Lots of companion videos coming up this long weekend. Your questions will get addressed in one of the companion videos coming up tomorrow or Friday or Saturday. Keep your eyes open. Your questions are going to get answered in a video. Anyway, that will do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for making this a part of your day. I am honored and humbled that you did. My name is John Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.